What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm Warren Thompson, and today we have some news about the X-Men 97 animated series that is going to be coming to Disney+. Today we have our very first official plot details for the upcoming series, as well as the series details about what Marvel Studios' plans are for the series, such as how many seasons is this series actually going to be. A lot of fans are really excited about this series because they watched the original animated series, and now it looks like this is essentially going to be the same thing, as X-Men 97 is basically going to pick up where the last X-Men animated series left off. And if you are a fan of the original X-Men animated series, it looks like they're going to be sticking pretty true to that original format with X-Men 97, so this is going to be a real treat for us who watched the animated series. So we have plot details, like I mentioned, including who the villain is going to be and how exactly he comes into play in the new X-Men team's lives. So recently, Marvel had the X-Men 60 Uncanny Years live virtual event where the X-Men 97 showrunner Beau DeMaio gave fans a lot of details about the upcoming project, including the plot and the beginning of the X-Men 97 animated show. And it sounds awesome. He starts off by stating, okay, we're gonna be picking up about several months after Professor X left Earth, after being shot by Henry Gyrich and had to return to the Shire homeworld to be with Lilandra. And what ends up happening is that assassination attempt has led to this wave of increased sympathy towards mutants and understanding, which has always basically been the X-Men dream and the dream of Professor Xavier. That's always been the dream. However, DeMaio does state that the X-Men weren't expecting this. So he continues to say, and things are, despite the friends of humanity still having their mullets and getting all up in it, things are really starting to look up for mutants. And this is gonna kind of come to a head and leads our X-Men to say, what does our future hold for us? We weren't expecting this. And you're gonna have Cyclops and Storm really wanting to carry on the dream. And they've recruited Morph and Bishop to actually become full-time members of the team. He even goes on to reveal that even Magneto is going to have a change of heart. He continues to state that other X-Men like Jean and Gambit and Rogue are starting to begin to question, well, maybe there is a life. We've been fighting for this life of acceptance. Can we just go out there and enjoy it for once? Maybe. And then of course somebody shows up who shouldn't show up, and it's Magneto, who's also kind of feeling like, you know, Professor X, he did a solid for mutant kind. I'm going to try to walk in his footsteps. I'm going to try to be a force of good for mutant kind. And real quick, I just gotta say that I truly do love this. One thing that I've always loved is the relationship between Magneto and Professor X. I've always loved the different variations of the stories that they've had together, and I actually think that one of the best X-Men scenes that we've ever gotten was when Professor Xavier died in X-Men The Last Stand, and right before he dies, Magneto yells out his name, Charles. Charles! I love that scene because in that moment, they have been fighting each other for years at that point. And even though they were technically fighting each other right then and there, even in that moment, Magneto reaches out and yells for concern for his friend because he does not want him to die. And he goes on in that movie to say that Charles Xavier did more for mutant kind than anybody and is one of the greatest men ever, and I love it. So I love that they're going to be exploring this with Magneto, and even though Magneto seems to be a little bit conflicted, he does want to honor Professor X. And DeMaio continues to say, but then, of course, as the X-Men are kind of looking at the future, and we're going to be talking a lot about this, how do you face the future? How do the X-Men do what they've been telling humanity to do for decades, which is embrace the future? Now, all of this sounds fantastic. This sounds like it's going to be a really great storyline for the X-Men. Of course, though, one thing is missing. People are asking, well, where's the conflict? Who's the villain going to be? If humanity is now on the side of the X-Men and they're being sympathetic towards them and they're actually getting along, and even Magneto himself is no longer a villain, well, what exactly and where exactly is the conflict of the show? Well, of course, don't worry, they did go on to reveal the villain, a very sinister villain. DeMaio states, a very, 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 very favorite character of mine and many others, Mr. Sinister, will rear his ugly head from the past with a pretty foolproof plan to destroy the X-Men once and for all. Now I like this because I believe there are a lot of different components that could come into play during this series. For one, they have already confirmed that Magneto is indeed going to be the leader of the new X-Men team. Yes, Storm and Cyclops are going to play a pretty big role, but Magneto is actually going to be the new leader, trying to do right by his old pal, Professor Xavier, and trying to basically honor what he did for mutant kind. But I also really like the fact that Mr. Sinister is going to be the villain and that he is going to be coming from the past, because his pretty foolproof plan might not actually take into account the fact that humankind is now kind of on the side of mutant kind. Mr. Sinister might not know this about the current time that the X-Men are in, and this could definitely foil his plans, which are seemingly bulletproof. But at the same time, when he comes from the past to the future, he may not have known that, and this may disrupt his plan because that might have actually been a part of his plan, humankind being against the X-Men. So he might get a pretty shocking surprise when he comes to the future to destroy the X-Men, finding out that one, not only is humanity on their side, but Magneto is on their side as well, one of the most powerful mutants ever. And let's be honest, I think we all expect at one point in time Professor X to return. Whether that's the final episode or the final episode of the first season, whatever it may be, I think a lot of us are expecting his return. And speaking of seasons, insider Casey Walsh did reveal some information about what to expect as far as the series is concerned and how long it's gonna last. And apparently Marvel has some pretty big multi-season plans for X-Men 97. As I mentioned, insider Casey Walsh has revealed that Disney Plus's X-Men 97 is being planned as a 4-season effort from Marvel Studios. He says it's expected to go 4 seasons and should come out in fall 2023. So we don't have an actual release date, so this maybe gives us a little bit of clarity on when to possibly expect it. But the great news is it does seem that Marvel Studios has multi-season plans for X-Men 97, which is fantastic because I'm really looking forward to the series, and I know a lot of other people are as well. And it sounds like it's going to be pretty dang good so far. We have some really great X-Men appearing in the show. Magneto is on the X-Men side, leading the X-Men, and humankind is now on the side of mutant kind as well. And then of course we have a pretty great villain coming in, Mr. Sinister. So go ahead and let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Are you excited for the animated series X-Men 97 coming to Disney Plus, hopefully this year if there are no delays? Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all things happening in the MCU and of course with Marvel, including X-Men 97. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.